Introducing PerfTracks, my latest jam and lesson video bundles. Available now at perfectodecastro.com/perftracks. Check it out. Hi there, Perf de Castro here, and welcome to my channel. I hope you're having a great day. Now, in this Perf Talk, we have a very, very special guest. One of my very good friends, Razorback, founding guitar player, and everybody's favorite classic rock / Pinoy rock guitar slinger, flying V guitar slinger, Mr. Tirso Ripoll.
Hey man.
Hey man,
Thanks
how's it
for having
going?
me. Good. It's good. It's good. How are you? How are you guys doing, man?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. Yeah, and
You certainly look like you're having a good time, which I really been appreciating.
well, that your area right there is very nice. It's
Yeah.
good.
My daughter got me into those lights because you know when you got to do those lockdown gigs, right? After a while, she was like, "It's a little." 'Cause that's my crew. That's my daughter's my cameraman, and my son's my grip. So they're my crew, and she's like, "That's a little boring. Why don't we get these LED lights off Shopee or whatever?" You know? It's pretty cool. It's like a tape. You just run tape
Yeah,
all around.
that's I think I have that somewhere here. Well,
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, it's a trip, and why not?
yeah.
Let me
And
just leave it out.
lots of interesting toys in the back. We'll get to that in a little bit. Anyway, so this is the second year of PerfTalk. When I first started, it was no more than like a Zoom call, like kumustahan lang with Francis Reyes, and I decided to record it and chop it up and put it on my YouTube, and then it just grew. Like this is not
As it
something.
does.
Yeah, and this is not something that's readily available to people interested in our careers, in our playing. Because usually when we do interviews, we don't get into the nitty gritty like the gear and the process, diba? Yeah. So
They
this,
still ask me, so how did you guys meet? Really? It's been 30 years now. You
Yeah.
still want the damn origin story after 30 years? So
well,
yeah.
but it's also the wrong origin story. I mean, at least we'll
Yeah,
delve more into the specifics. So, para,
Yeah, and no, but you're right, and it's coming from a different perspective when it's you asking the questions, and it's people who were in the scene together in the same scene, and it's a different perspective.
Yep,
You know.
definitely. Okay, so instead of Razorback's origin story, I'd like to start with your origin story.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
I know.
your origin story. So how did you get started playing?
Well, okay, look, I've always been a heavy rock fan, always since I was like a kid, man. That's all full credit to my older brother, who because that's how you do it. He would bring home these records. You're riding to school together, and he's got it playing in the car, and so that's how I discovered Kiss and the Rolling Stones, and then Queen, and all these great Fleetwood Mac, and all these great bands. So my first record I ever bought was Kiss, their Kiss album, the first one. That and Play the Game by Queen. Because my mom used to bring us to Harrison Plaza because we lived in Manila.
Yeah,
Dude, records were I think $40.
yeah,
40 pesos, dude. And so my brother would go like, you should buy this. That's really good. Because that's the one he wanted. Because he had the other album. So he'd borrow it from me, right? These were all plaka, di ba?
yeah.
Anyway, so that was how it was. But I didn't start playing guitar till about I was 17. I was pretty old already.
Well, how old were you when you started getting into the records?
I was grade 5. I had the Kiss
Ah,
lunchbox at grade
okay.
5. So
Wow.
as far as I can remember,
Nice.
it's always been, So, and of course that just carried on, and that's when I met Mix Ortigas. I must have been 12. He was a good the classmate of my cousin, who was all, and that's when we really got into metal, because when you met Migs, it was like it was all metal because he was getting, he had access to U.S. material because his sister lived in the U.S. So he would go every couple of years. So he had all these great records where you couldn't buy here. And so we'd all be over at his house, listen to some really cool stuff. How it works, my cousin inherited like a whole bunch of records from his uncle who took off to the States. And we found all the Black Sabbath albums, like complete, all the Led Zeppelin albums. And we're like, what is this? and we put it on, and we're like that. When you put on like Paranoid, you never come back. Right? From the moment we heard that, we were like, oh my God. And then it was, and then from Migs, then we got Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, Ozzy, all of that stuff. And that was basically the early 80s.
Introducing the Bad 94 Distortion, the Perf de Castro's signature pedal. Now available to order from the following retailers: gcrockboard.com, guitarpusher.com, and from the official website, perfectodecastro.com. Links in the description.
I know Migs and I always wanted to have a band, even when we were kids, we're like, we're going to have a band, but we never got around to it. In fact, Migs bought a guitar first. And then I ended up, my brother had a guitar, so I would dick around with it a little, but it wasn't until I was 17 where we really, I actually bought Migs' guitar because he left for the States and he wasn't using it, so he sold it to me. And that was like my first decent guitar that I had.
Do you remember what it was?
Yeah, it was a white Hondo.
Oh, Hondo. Okay. Yeah.
And I have photos of it because I used to use it a lot. And then what I did was I don't know where I got a neck. Somebody made a neck. I think it was Mang Rudy who had made a neck that I got, and I connected it to my Hondo. Then it looked like a flying V-neck, and that's sort of what I ended up using in the early days. So that was my practice guitar, my jam guitar, and then eventually, I think when we started Razorback, that was the only guitar I had. I mean, I didn't.
What was the body shape?
It was a Strat. It was
Strat.
a white
Strat. Okay.
Hondo
Strat. Okay.
And then I know I have some photos somewhere. And at some point, when Migs got back and Razorback started and all that, I needed a better guitar, and I ended up getting a Carvin. Migs had gone to the States, and I gave him some money, and he bought me this Carvin. Yeah, it was nice. It sounded great, but it didn't have a Floyd Rose, a floating bridge, which I didn't realize what a pain in the ass those were. I had them. I mean, I know you always use them, and you use them very, very well. And and Francis Reyes, who was a very good friend of my brother. I met Francis even before I knew how to play guitar. I knew Francis. He and my brother were good friends. So he would come to my house. They would listen to records and stuff. That's a funny story. So one time my brother went to Subic because he had one of his classmates in high school was American. He had joined the Navy, and then it was the Gulf War, right? So all these guys he was in Subic because I think he got hurt. So he was in Subic and so they went up to visit him. This was in 89 or something like that, right? And back then the CDs were kind of rare, but they had a lot of them on the base, right? So he came home with a bunch of them, and he came home with this album. It was Fleetwood Mac's Greatest Hits, and I'm like, I've never seen this, and it was very weird. And
which version of Fleetwood Mac?
Well, yeah, this is what I'm saying.
Okay.
Up until then, I only knew the latest version, which is
with the girls
and the girls. And so he puts this album on, and the first song, Green Man Alishi, right? And he's like, what the hell is this crap? But I was like, oh my God, that was, if I can pinpoint a crystallizing moment, it was that when that first played. And I took that CD, I still have it. I play it all the fucking time. I mean, I love it. It's like, the original Black Magic Woman's on there. So there's all the old Peter Green stuff, and it was just incredible. I've never been more. I think that was a super defining moment for me. After that, then I started to do things differently, in terms of listening to music and discovering stuff. So anyway, flash forward, of course, by this time, I had, Migs and I were very good friends. Razorback was already being threatened to, was threatening to get together.
Yeah.
At some point, and then about a year later, we all did, and I would always refer to these albums. And then, so I get my guitar, and then, so anyway, this Carvin that I got, Floyd Rose, it was, and then I sold that guitar to Manny Amador of the Breeze.
Okay, so that's the Carvin.
That's the one.
Manny
loved it, and he played it really well. And with the money I got from that, I ordered from Audiophile that Flying
V, the iconic guitar.
That one. And I think what they did was they go, we have two on the container that's coming in. So one's yours, and I will just figure out who gets the other one. I'm like, whatever, sell it. And I obviously sold it. And the irony was, so I get that guitar finally. We had a gig. I think it was in Weekends Live. Not the Weekends Live of...
Not Atrium?
Atrium. The second week. Remember he did that one up in the top of a building?
Oh, I didn't get to that one.
He had something up there, and we had a gig there. I remember So this guitar, I was going to debut it. I was so happy. So that was a Saturday. And I think it was the Saturday before or the Monday of that week when the Are You Gonna Go My Way video came.
Oh, no.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I come out with this fly and they're all like, oh, it's like Lenny Kravitz. Like, God damn it. No, Lenny Kravitz. Ano ba? Tagal ko na binili to, ah. It was just in transit. And so after that, it was just like, oh, he saw the Kravitz video and he got like, no, damn it. So that was that. But then, I remember as soon as I got it, it's like, wow, this is, and I think Migs had said it the best when I pulled it out of the case. And they're like, see, that's what a guitar is supposed to sound like. I'm like, I agree.
Yeah, definitely. Musta mga Epektos? Perf de Castro to at welcome sa bahay ni Pekto. Sana'y enjoy kayo dito sa episode ng PERFTalk. Break lang tayo saglit para sa ilang announcement. Ang PDC Signature Picks na gawa ng Anatomy of Sound ay available na dyan sa Pilipinas. I-message nyo lang sa Facebook ang AJ Guitar Setup or i-search nyo si Alfred John Garduque. Ang bawat pakete ay naglalaman ng 3 pick at sila ay classified depende sa kulay. Ang puti ay ang soft, ang kulay flesh naman ay medium at ang kulay itim ay ang hard. Ngayon, kahit magkakaiba ang kanilang tigas, 3D printed ang contours nito. Kaya iisa lang yung grip at masarap siya gamitin. Ngayon, meron tayong iba't ibang klaseng available. Ito yung regular sized pick na panggitara. Meron tayong mas malaki ng konti para sa bass. Meron ding heartbeat at heartbeat jazz shape para sa mga shredders. At ang personal kong gamit ngayon ay ang heart attack pick. At katulad ng PDC Heartbeat Picks, ang Heart Attack ay 3 din bawat pakete at magkakaiba rin yung kanilang hardness. Ang kaibahan lang ay hindi pa PDC branded ang packaging. Pero hindi naman importante yan eh. Mas importante yung pick mismo. Ang Anatomy of Sound PDC Signature Picks ay available dyan sa Pilipinas sa halagang 700 pesos lang. Kasali na doon ang delivery fee. Limited lang ang stocks kahit i-message nyo na kagad ang AJ Guitar Setup sa Facebook. Marami na rin nakabili ng bagong design ng PDC shirts and merch mula sa gcrockboard.com. Maraming salamat sa inyong patuloy na suporta at ang plano ko every month meron akong ilalabas na bagong design. So meron na ngayong available sa gcrockboard.com/PDC both sa black shirts at saka sa black na mug. At pag nakuha nyo ng inyong PDC merch, either pics, shirts, mugs, Bad94, ipadala nyo lang ako ng picture through Facebook or Instagram para masali ko kayo sa future videos. Okay, hanggang doon na lang muna. Balik na tayo sa PERFTalk. When you started to pick up the guitar, did you have somebody teach you?
My brother. I have full marks to my brother for my musical, path, putting me on it. Not just for records and exposing me to rock and roll, but so he was learning how to play the guitar. So he knew how to play the chords and whatnot. And so he showed me a bunch of chords. And then when I got my guitar, we had a drum machine. And this was a cool thing that we would do all the time. It's the old Boss drum machine. It's the little one. It's a Boss or Tascam. It's a little one like that. And it had the big pads. Anyway, so we would set this thing up and we would both plug into one amp and we would just jam for hours, just some basic. He would teach me a basic progression and he would solo over it. So he just needed somebody to, my brother's great that way.
Rhythm guitar.
He just needed a rhythm guitar.
Yeah. You were his backing track.
Yeah. But then, of course, he was cool. So he would showed me some scales. And this is around the time Dave and I were also learning. And there was a great, Dave had it, Doug Marks.
Yeah. Metal Method.
Metal Method. That
Metal Method
was the best. So my brother and I would do this jam thing on the drum machine. And eventually we discovered Metal Method. And then he outlined the pentatonic scale. And then he had these jam riffs on a cassette that we would listen to. And, it was Back in Black and I think Sweet Emotion. And it's just so you could practice the A pentatonic or the E minor pentatonic, you know what I mean? And that was sort of, we just lived on that. And then that whole drum machine thing, we just kept going. Then eventually my brother went to Australia. But this time Razorback had been formed. I mean, he was our original bassist, but, he had to leave the band because of musical differences.
Okay.
But And that was it. And then, but that formed a basis, that whole jamming thing, where that came from, and which is something I've loved from the day I did it, and we still love it up to today. So it's really featured heavily in everything we've ever done. I mean, Dave and I would sit hours in his room and just jamming on a couple of riffs, and we would just do that for hours. It was, it was really good and helped us, develop our styles, and when you can try out new licks when you're soloing, or different approaches to stuff, and it was just fun. And I highly recommend it to everyone.
That explains yung interplay, your interplay with Dave on the Razorback tunes. Because usually,
Yeah.
Two guitars up until that point, may rhythm guitar, may lead guitar, But you guys didn't do that role. You're constantly trading off, and then the parts complemented each other. So that explains it, because you've been playing off each other long, like even before the band.
Yeah, for years. It was like one thing that really teaches you is to how to listen to the other guy and be receptive. So there are a few ways you can do it if you're two guitarists, right? You have the first one, which is one guy's class all rhythm and one guy's all lead, right? And that's a very AC/DC kind of way. That's Malcolm just played the rhythm, and Angus did the lead. And then you have like the Iron Maiden, Allman Brothers kind of thing, where you
twin.
have these, the twin harmonies and a lot of it and all of that. We didn't do a lot of either. We would sort of do it in the middle, where we would interplay. Like he would play a lick, but I would play. I mean, I could play the same lick, but but if I change my rhythm up a little bit this way, it changes things and it complements what he's doing. Or I'll change something and he'll pick up on it and start complementing it. And because we had played together for so long and we had worked this way together for so long, we could do it quickly. If he switched, I would immediately know exactly where I'd be. And that carried on, and eventually even Louis would pick up on it, and the whole band. And the trick was that the whole band would do it. If somebody switched a little, then you had this thing. Everybody can switch quickly, and that's how we always strove for that.
It's symbiotic tsaka reactive. It's
That was the thing. I mean, really, and it's again, you just have to listen. So when the monitoring sucks, so like it gets difficult,
Yeah.
But surprisingly, in Merix, you can pull it off.
Yeah, well, the place is so small. There's no need for monitors, dude.
You're so close, can't miss anything. You're so close to each other.
Yeah, it's like jamming in your bedroom.
Literally,
Yeah.
it's in your bedroom.
That's one of the things I missed. Kasi like there was a while back I started playing out here, and then the band I was playing in, for the most part I was the only guitar player. Pero on some gigs they asked their other guitar player to sit in para mag dual guitar ek.
Yeah.
So, sige, well, let's do it. I mean, less work for me, I don't have to care.
Yeah.
I don't have to carry everything. But
Exactly.
the dude did only knew the solos, man. He does not know the chords underneath the solo. So, pag ako na yung nagsosolo, he would be, he would turn his back, he would be behind his amp, he'd be taking a drink. It's like, what the fuck are you doing?
That's not. Parang we used to call that Bogart. Yeah, you're Bogarting all the solo times.
Yeah, exactly. And then, pucha, parang hindi na bawasan yung trabaho ko.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, the whole thing about rhythm guitar is like Malcolm Young said. I don't play solos because it interferes with my drinking. Which is kind of how I've been for the last couple of years. Because, Manoy is so good. I just watch him. I just kick back and watch and go at it. But you're right. I mean, there's something about being the only guitar player in the band. It made you play completely different. I mean, I did that for a couple of years in between Dave and Manuel, so I know what it's like. It has its own charm, but working with another guitar player, I mean, it's just working with another guitar player that does all the bits he's supposed to is different. It's quite liberating, man.
Yeah.
You know what I like? I mean, one thing I've learned over 30 years is silence is important. Knowing when to play is obviously important, but knowing when not to play is almost equally important. And when you have a guy who's very good and who on his own can do all of this, right? It's nice to be able to stop, just sustain one little note and all of that, and but it meshes everything really well. And to have that kind of dynamic, I think is I like it. I like it a lot.
No, it's
So
important because there's no point in playing with another guitar player if he only plays with himself, you know?
then just play with yourself.
Yeah, exactly. It's like,
Yeah, and I think at our age, I mean, I think it's not interesting to do that.
yeah, exactly. It's like,
Like it wouldn't be an interesting time for me to just, I mean, it's not something I would be into. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Ngayon, how did you hook up with Dave? Because he's like way younger.
David is Miguel's half brother. David's mom is the wife of Miguel's dad. So they grew up together. Dave was a kid, so Miguel and I would be there plotting this band, and Dave was on the side. And he took guitar lessons from Ben Shalsita, the late great Ben Shalsita. I'll never forget. So Miguel got a drum kit, and I went there to practice, and Dave brought his guitar down, and Dave blew me away at that age. I was like, this is embarrassing. It was embarrassing how good he was.
Yeah.
And so that sort of kicked it off. The whole point of Razorback, the plan. Let me tell you the plan. Plan was, let's just get good enough so we can go to Olongapo, because that's where all the bands were. Remember, this is 1989.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And 1990. So we're gonna give it a couple of years, and that's the goal, because that's all, because we were big Coco Jam fans, right? So we watched Coco Jam every Friday. Before then, it would be Mondays or Wednesdays or whatever in Merix. So we would just watch them all the time, and we got we'd be friends with them, and then that's what they would tell us, like, Manila's great, but in Olongapo, man, it's like bar after bar after bar. It's just, you just play all night. And so we were like, that's where we need to be. So we had everything geared up. We were getting good enough for that. And I think we were there now. And then Pinatubo happened, right?
Oh, yeah.
So it killed. And I remember this. I was in Biggs's house, and we were jamming, practicing. We were learning some tunes. And then I walked outside, and there was ash. It was like, what's this? What's all this crap floating around? It was the ash.
Yeah.
And I ended up stranded in his house for a couple of days because my car got messed up with the ash and everything. So that killed that, right? That killed that plan. So we're like, all right, well, let's just figure it out. And then we ended up in Kalay and then doing all of that. But Dave, that's how we got together with Dave.
And before Razorback was Outrider, right?
Yeah, well, we did that Big Bang gig. That was
Yeah.
Well,
I was there.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, we were there.
You were the big band for the night. We were I'm trying to remember now. Yeah, because we didn't have a name yet, so we were trying to figure this out, and that name came up because we were jamming with Isabel Lozano, who was our very, very first singer. My brother was on bass, and I don't know how we got hooked up with the Big Bang thing. I don't know how that happened. Jonas Benico, was my classmate at Lasal.
Jonas,
that's right. That's right, because Jonas was playing too.
Yeah.
His band was playing, and Jonas and I were good friends in Lasal because we were both in engineering. And Jonas, I think it was one of the engineering days. He goes, "We got to put a band together, and you want to play?" And I go, "I'm not very good, man." And he was very good. And so it was Jonas Benico, Noel Arceo, myself, and for the life of me, I forget who played bass. No, sorry, I think Jonas played bass, which I found odd. I go, "Dude, you're better than me on the guitar. You should play bass." But he made me play guitar. But anyway, but it was cool. And then we played Pretty Woman, I remember, and all of that. So that's why. And then when Big Bang came, he goes, "You got a group together. You got to come. You guys got to play." So and I brought it to the guys, and we're like, "Okay, let's go." And so we had no name. We were just a bunch of guys jamming. And Outrider came about. That was from the Jimmy Page
solo album. Yeah.
Makes it bought it a year or two before. Anyway, and then that happened, and then I think Isabel, I think naging strict yung parents.
Yeah.
So he couldn't play with us anymore.
Oh no.
So we needed to get another singer, and we knew Mari Cuervo had jammed with us a couple of times. And so we knew Mari, was up for it. So we called him up, and I think Migs got approached for the LaSalle Green Hills homecoming, one of them. He was obviously out of LaSalle, but I don't know how he got roped in. I think it was Jaime Lontoc or somebody must have roped us into it. So Mari was our singer, and then we needed a name, and then we used I think we were Razorback for that gig. So that was our first time we played with Mari. It went over really well. And then if I'm not mistaken, we joined this NU 107 Battle of the Bands, the first one in Paco Park. And I'm just trying to remember. I think we were Razorback already then. At that point, Migs and I had decided on the name, right? And it was after this, and so we did that in Paco Park. I think it was 1990. UP Epsilon with NU 107 Battle of the Bands, and we won. Our closing number was Stairway to Heaven. Isabel sang that gig. She's beautiful, singing Stairway to Heaven. Dave knocked the solo out of the park, as he always did, and so it was good. And that was sort of the beginning of that. And then Isabel, at some point, we got a gig at Kalay, and then she said, "I can't do this." And then that's when Mari came on and took over. Not from there. That was sort of how that worked. I know.
So the first official gig was La Salle Green Hills.
I'm gonna say it's Big Bang.
Big Bang. But as Razorback.
Well, yeah, using the name Razorback would have been. I think it was La Salle Green Hills already. No, we weren't even. No, I'm sorry. I'm trying. I think our name in La Salle was Moon Shadow. Because we couldn't be Outrider because Isabel wasn't there. Right?
Yeah.
And then so we had to get a different name for that night. It was terrible. But we loved how everything came out. No, Razorback came already for that. I think it was for the NU thing. Between that period, we got a little good. Migs and I, at one night in Mayrix, were discussing a name, and we said, we can't use these names. They're not very good. They need to change. And then Razorback came up, and that's the one that stuck. So that's probably why, because we won that competition. So we're like, well,
yeah,
this seems official. So right, we should stick with this.
Yeah.
That was sort of that, I think.
And then when you got into Kalay, was that a weekly gig right away?
Well, no. Yes, this is how Kalay worked. So there was a band that played there. It was the Ricky Cui was the keyboard player in this band, and Miyagi, who was the guitarist of Sampaguita, was.
Miyagi, yeah. I remember.
He was very good. He had this gorgeous Fender Telecaster, the Blondie, gorgeous, and he was really good. And the thing about Kalay was they had really inexpensive drinks.
Yeah.
So we would all go there and drink cheaply and then go off somewhere else. So we'd be there. The band was playing, and Isabel would come out with us. And, we would normally come from rehearsal at Miguel's house or whatever. And they told our friends, were like, hey, these guys, why don't you guys jam? And so Isabel would get up, and Migs and I would get up. The three of us would get up and jam. And that's sort of how that started. So then, we'd have more friends who'd come because they knew we were going to jam. So more friends would come to check that out. And then eventually what happened was, we were in Migs' house, and Migs got a call from the owner of Kalay. Apparently, Ricky fought with the owner, and the band and they had no band for that weekend. And I didn't know this because we're sitting there, and Migs is on the phone. Yeah, okay, yeah, sure, yeah, no problem. Okay, yeah, we'll see you there. And he goes, we got a gig. We're taking over the spot of Sila Ricky in Kalay. I don't know what happened. They got into a fight. We're taking it over. I go, really? That's awesome. When? Saturday. I go, we know 4 songs. He goes, don't worry about it. We're going to play for 3 hours. I'm like, are you nuts? Anyway, so we made Banat for the week, came up with something, and we went to play. And we were terrible, But certainly you don't know how tiring it is until, having never done it. I think the longest gig we had was 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and now we're playing for 3 hours. I was half dead by the end. It was just awful. But and this again is any young band starting out. If the more friends you can bring to a bar that drink, that guarantees that the bar will ask you back. And if there's one thing we had was a lot of friends who drank a lot. So they all came, and so that the band that they kept asking us back because obviously we had all these people. And eventually, though, we got a little better, and then more people who were not our friends would come. Then eventually, our friends stopped coming because they got sick of us. But then it would get full of people we didn't know, and I think that's when I had turned to Mari and Migs, and I go, think we're doing something right, I don't know anybody here. So that's pretty good. So that's how that. And by that time, Louis had joined in because when Isabel she couldn't do the regular Kalye gig. So Mari came on board, and Mari brought Louis with him, who was his classmate in CRC at that point. Yeah. So that's how basically that all started.
When you're ready for new pedal day, use discount code GCPerf10 at gcrockboard.com to get 10% off your entire order. You can use the code multiple times and there is no expiration date. Enjoy. How long before you started writing your own tunes?
Let me see. So about a year and a half with Mari, almost 2 years maybe with Mari. And then Mari had to leave. And then Kevin Roy came. And we maybe did about a year with Kevin Roy. And by that point, we were still just doing all covers. Juan de la Cruz and everything like that. It's been about a year after Kevin joined, Well, before Mari left, we did like one song. We had written one track, did a demo of it. But we never really finished it. In Stephen Lou in Loud House.
Loud House.
In Loud House. That's where we did our first one. And then at some point, with Kevin, we already, we had to start getting it done. And we started, I really started putting my foot down, and I got belligerent about it already. So they just, okay, let's do it. And Dave and I were really hell-bent on getting it done. And so that's sort of about a year after Kevin joined. So, by that point, we had we had pretty much exhausted every cover. We were just getting tired already. And so, it was a good time. So I'm going to say about 93, 94 by that time. We started writing our own tunes. And then by 95 was when we recorded the first album.
And then how did you start the writing process? How did you get into it?
I always, we would always have little things on the side. So like, I've just for me, writing a riff, presenting it, and then normally that's how it would work. But sometimes where I would write and I would put some words to it and the melody as well, and I'd show up and like play this, and they'd either like it or they wouldn't, or and you just sort of did that, and that's sort of that's still how it is up to today. I'll come up with a riff, and from there everything just keeps getting added. And I think the first real one that we wrote that got accepted and that we finally really finished all the way through was Tabi ng Bulkan, which is, it's after a wild night. We had been doing Kalye for a few years, and after Kalye, everyone would go to, Pepito Bosch's house in Pasay for the after party. I wouldn't go all the time because I was always dead tired, man. But this one time I did go, and it was just wild. And I woke up, I was still hammered when I woke up. And I remember waking up totally hammered, and then I wrote this song out in 5 minutes. I had that riff playing for a few days or whatever. And I was still hammered, and I woke up, I wrote this song out in 5 minutes and went back to bed. And I got up later, almost in the afternoon, and I read through it and I played it, and I go, it's a pretty open sort of thing. So it's there's no hard fast rule like parang I write the songs that make the whole world sing. It's not like that. No. It's whoever shows up with anything. Like, Brian wrote a bunch of songs, he wrote Lunatic off our, which is our big opus off the second album, one of my favorite songs. He wrote that. So Kevin wrote the riff of, what is it? Of Wakasan. He hummed it to us, and then we interpreted it, right? So it's very open. It's whatever works,
Nice. Okay, and then how do you know when the song's finished?
That's a good question, man. I don't know. I'm gonna say when you have some closure to it, you record it. You're playing it, and you play it through, and you're like, it depends a lot on the kind of song you're doing and the kind of mood you're trying to do. But I always like a resolve. I don't like to leave things hanging. I'm a big fan of closure. So whatever we do, it must close, or it must have an ending. I'm not a big fan of fade out. I'm really not. I like to have an ending. So I think when you get to a point where you've said all you can say, and you're getting overly repetitive, you dial it back and okay, let's cut out a few bars and then cut it here. But basically that's it. And I've always maintained that the song will tell you, let the music dictate what needs to be done. And I know it's probably gonna sound weird, but you'll know when it's time, when okay, this thing's good. But having said that, if you listen to Beggar's Moon, a lot of those songs were really long.
I know. Alam mo nun, that period, like pretty much all the Sony bands around that time, all our first records with Sony were like, okay, who's going to fill up the CD capacity? So we
Exactly, man.
started with Wolfgang. Kasi
Yeah.
usually dati 60 minutes lang, di ba? So
Yeah.
Wolfgang was like 70 something. And then Triaxis beat that by a couple of minutes. And then you guys came out and it's like, halos hindi magkasya.
I know. 80 odd something minutes.
I know. So,
Hilarious.
and then the other thing then that struck me was like yung batch natin of 90s bands who got radio play. Razorback and Wolfgang were the most riff oriented ones.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, diba kasi like Rizal Underground is like big open chords. River Maya had one riff song, but then for the most part it's like strumming and open chords. So that shows the difference of the influences, you know.
I think so.
Yeah, because I didn't get into I didn't get into Black Sabbath and all that until later.
Yeah, but that's exactly it. I mean, it's because the reason we're really good friends with Manuel and Wolf and Basti and them, because we all like the same music. I mean, Manuel knows Black Sabbath and Who as much as I love Black Sabbath and the Who. In fact, he loves the Who more. I mean, in fact, remember when I think who was that director who did the Jesus Christ Superstar?
Bobby something.
And then I remember I was at a bar and he was talking about bringing Tommy in.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah, and I remember I had a few drinks and I told him, I go, listen, if you're gonna do that, you need Manuel Legardo on board, or else don't bother. Trust me, there's nobody in the Philippines that can do it better than Manuel can, and that's a fact. Still the damn truth. I'll stick by that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, because that's the music we loved. I mean, all riff stuff. I mean, Black Sabbath. Come on, Juan de la Cruz is all riffology, right? I mean, that's all these great riffs. I mean, Zeppelin and all that. AC/DC. That's where we came from. That was the music we love to listen to. We still love to listen to. So naturally, it was the music we were going to make. So there's no surprise there. I was surprised that we were the only ones doing it. I'm like, don't you guys like this stuff? I mean, this stuff's cool. Well, nobody else wants to do this.
Yeah, I think it's also the taste of the general population,
right?
Because like bands who came to my studio to record, there was a lot of riff bands. They played riffs and all that, but they never really went past the demo stage. Parang sa airways for popular rock music, hindi masyadong nag-catch on yung riff.
Yeah, and that was a shame. I mean, there's a lot of good bands in the South pa. And I mean, they all went through your studio.
Yeah. Like I remember like Lourdes de Vera's first band before Radioactive Sago Project. He was just a guitar player. He wasn't singing. I forget, Bite the Bullet. And all they wrote was like riff stuff. Like all heavy riff. Like even meron pang medyo style Mahavishnu. Like they're recording this song and then I just sort of like look at them like that. And he did one of these. Lord hilarious.
I'm actually, have you heard his new band?
Oh no.
Kapitan Kulam, I think. I have to just make sure. Yeah, Kapitan Kulam.
Oh, I gotta check that out.
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome, man, and it's all super heavy. He's got his Les Paul. It's all really chugging, and I'm like, dude, that's so Sabbath, man.
Nice.
But he's not singing. I go, Lord, come on, man.
So that's him. That's him going back to his roots then, because that was how I met him. I met him as a guitar player, not as the beatnik.
Yeah, he's doing it now, and they were great. I mean, I caught them a couple of times in Sagiho, but clearly, then all of this happened, right? So he hasn't been doing it for many years, but they were out already. It was coming.
Yeah, and then there was this other band too, Mutiny.
Mutiny. But they got a record.
They got a record, but it wasn't. They were still more like Muso's choice. It's not. Yeah. It's not mainstream. Yeah, it wasn't. It didn't cross over.
Yeah, which is a shame. I like Mutiny a lot. Man.
Yeah. They were awesome. They recorded the first demo they did in my studio, and it's like, oh guys, this is gonna take off.
Who's the bassist? Andrew?
No, si Lau.
Okay, yeah, no.
Lau. Lawrence.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
Lau. So this was Chuck Fournier, Roy.
Yeah, Chuck Fournier.
Yeah. Paul.
And I know Chuck used to play with Nino. He was the original.
Yeah. Blue Jean.
With Blue Jean.
Yeah, well, they recorded in my studio too.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So
a lot of really good bands, and at the time, a lot of guys were getting getting record deals. Because basically, Ivory took all the bands, all the rock bands. They gave to a lot. Whereas I think some of the other record companies just they chose a few. They had like their token rock bands, and then they had their other bands. But whereas I think it was Ivory, you just had a ton of these rock bands, which was a good thing, I thought.
Yeah, Ivory and Alpha.
Alpha had a bunch.
Alpha.
Alpha had the Youth. Our first album was off Alpha, so it was us. Well, Yano was there first. It was Yano, the Youth. We were there. I think Agawagimat was there. Color It Red, I think.
Color Red ba? Alpha ba?
No.
No.
Then
No,
I think they were not BMG maybe, or Warner.
No, Warner, I think. Warner. Because BMG was Maya and Francis M. and Eraserheads.
You're right.
Yeah.
But so it was a fun time. But you're right. There were a lot of bands that didn't get. Is it Grin Department?
Yeah, there were.
Grin Department, Alpha rin yan eh.
Alpha, yeah. I mean, it depends who produced them, I think, because the producers were tied to specific record companies.
Funny story about Grin Department. That was so funny. We were on tour. We were in Baguio. So it was us. I think us, the Youth, and I know Grin Department was there. I don't know who else was there, on the same bill. And it was always funny because we loved going with Richard Tan and his bands because they were just hilarious, right? And so we're staying in this I guess it was like a bed and breakfast back then. This is in the 90s, right? In Baguio. And so here's the common room. Let's say this is the common room. There's a big corridor going this way, right? Long corridor, all the rooms are on the side. At the end is a door. There's a big room there. And Grin Department was in that room. And anyway, so we're all in the common room. Gigs, going to be later in the evening. We're all just there hanging out, having a couple of drinks. And then we hear this commotion come out of that side. And the door flies open, and this naked dude flies out, and we're all there. We're all there with our drinks. Like, what the? Yeah, there's a lot of us. There's girls. It's like a big mixed crowd. We're all like, what the hell? And this dude's like scrambling to get back in the door. He's totally naked, right? Like banging on the door. Anyway, they finally let him in, and we're just laughing our asses off. Anyway, later on that night at the gig, I asked somebody, one of the Grin Department guys, I forget which one, and I go, "Hey, what the hell was that with the naked dude?" That was the guy from the record company. He's naked and threw him out. It was the Baguio rep for the record company. I was like, that guys are the best. Hilarious, man.
Oh my god.
It was too funny.
Oh, dude. That's like Motley Crue, Ozzy Osbourne hotel room antics, man.
Really, man, really. And we're just like, I can't, I don't know what's going on here. But I was fun. Of course, we all went off, did the gig. It was great. I enjoyed a lot of those gigs where we would be with a bunch of the other bands. So then you for some, at least you get to, you'd hang out with Erap or with, Dodong or whoever was up for it, Robert,
Yeah, kasi when we would do our circuit in Manila, we rarely get to hang out. It's either we'd have gigs opposite ends of the metro, or or you'd be out of town, we'd be in town, and then next week we'd be out of town, you'd be in town. So it's
because we always work at the same time, but not in the same place, because we were always, Friday night, Saturday night, you were playing, so you were playing somewhere.
Yeah, and then sometimes we'd see each other at Rufus or some other after gig hangout.
Gig place.
Berus.
Or open 25 hours. Guda.
Yeah.
Many times.
Guda.
Basti and I, if we were having to be together, because we would, when we were the only two living in the South, Basti, Patrick, and I. So we'd ride home many a night together if we were, on the same bill or whatever. So, fun, man.
Yeah, grabe. Kung enjoy kayo dito sa video, pakibigyan lang ng thumbs up, like, tirahin nyo na yung subscribe button, at pagtingin yung maliit na kampanilya. Now, do you have a memorable gig that you still recall fondly?
Yeah, several. Our very first gig with Kevin Roy was very memorable. It was in the Bikutan Rehab.
What the?
So I had called from my friend. And he was a counselor there, and he goes, "Hey, we're gonna have a show. You guys want to play?" And we're like, "Yeah, okay, dude." And it was Kevin Roy's first gig. And then the Ray cards were on just before that. The Ray cards,
Ray
dude.
cards.
I'm gonna let you digest that for a minute.
Yeah.
And what's funny was, so plus I get there and I see a friend I know. I go, "Tangina, ginagawa mo dito?" I thought you split. He goes, "Wala, pare." You know, so I was like, "All right, man." And so we get there, and so the Ray cards are playing. You know, they're normally a funny group. Dude, nobody was laughing. Everyone was just sort of like ups. But I was like, wow, tough crowd, right? So we get up, and then we're rocking it out. And voila, dude, they're just there like that. I'm like, dude, labo naman, these guys are, you know. And so I asked my friend, I go, "Oh, tough crowd." And he goes, "No, we had to sedate them all because it'll get too nutty."
Oh no.
I wanna be sedated. They were all freaking hilarious, man. So that was his first gig. But his second gig was when we opened for Metallica, which was something else, man. That was quite special.
Yeah, how was that? How was that?
Dude, that was great. We didn't get to meet them, which was unfortunate because what happened was their tour manager died. Either died or was like taken deathly, like hospitalized seriously the night before from their last gig. I was in 93, I think. 93. It was the Nowhere Else Left to Roam tour. That was the title of the tour. And so they were clearly out of sorts. So basically, when they set up in Ultra, they were just they stayed in their room. Though Jason Newsted came out, that's when he shaved his head. He had shaved his head in the dressing room.
Yeah, he was looking for a shaver backstage. Yeah,
and he did that. And we didn't meet them, which was unfortunate. But we hung out, and they were incredible. And it was great. First time I saw it, where I got to. So we were hanging out backstage, right? So we were watching them from the side of the stage and the backstage. And the first time I ever saw, dude, Kirk Hammett was running around, and he just had his guitar. He didn't have any pedal board, nothing. The roadie, his guitar tech was in the back of the stage, and he's tinkering on the guitar, and then he'll stop, and then he'll step on a pedal, and then Kirk goes into a solo. All he had was like a wah-wah on the stage. That's it. And I guess they had it rigged up with some wireless sort of deal, but that was it. All the other pedal action was the guitar tech in the back doing it. I mean, so the guy basically just running around, and I was like, damn, that's cool, man. You know? And then you could see when the guy was late, dude, he'd look back, his head would whip back like, motherfucker. You know? but it was fantastic, man. I mean, and it was Metallica, for God's sake. It was incredible. You know, it was great.
And then you opened for Bon Jovi then, di ba?
Bon Jovi after that 2 nights. That was funny, dude. So,
okay, I heard a story. I want you to confirm.
Sure.
That you somehow got into their drinks cooler.
Yes, we did. They were in Rizal Memorial, right?
Yeah.
Rizal Memorial, and there's a drinks cooler in the back area where everyone hung out, the backstage area. And there was, and so we would just run around, watch, and then we'd pop in, grab a beer, and all of that. And at some point, one of the roadies got really upset because we were finishing all the beer. He just sat on the cooler. And so we run up, and he's just looking at us, and we're like, all right, brother. That was funny because that was 2 nights. And then the first night, so right after we played, I had to split because I was working at the time. So I'm like, I got to split, and it was a weeknight, so I got to get up early. So I took off pretty much right after we played. And then, dude, it started raining, like super rain, right? And this is open air. It's Rizal Coliseum, baseball field. And there was lightning. And anyway, I got home and I woke up the next day, dude. They had canceled the show. People were rioting because they had to stop playing because lightning, and they couldn't. I mean, the downpour was crazy. So then the next day was the second show, man. So it was cool. They let everybody in from the first night, so it was like really jam packed. I wasn't a Bon Jovi fan, but I was surprised at how many songs I knew. And dude, they sounded phenomenal. I mean, that was Metallica was fantastic, but these guys were, what a polished set, polished act. And they did it's one of those nights where everybody sang almost every song. It was impressive. So they more than made up for it on the next night. It was pretty good.
I remember a story like Manuel was driving around that time.
No.
Did he tell you this? And then a car like was racing past him and cut him off. Then the driver and the passenger came out and came up to him. Bon Jovi, can you get a can you sign this please? Siya naman like okay. he just signed it, whatever.
What did he sign? Bond.
Love Bond.
Love Bond. That's funny.
That's funny.
You never told me that. I gotta ask you about that. That's funny, man.
And then, did you front for Rage too?
Yes, we did. After Bon Jovi, there's a couple of years. We did Silverchair. I remember in UP, they had an opener for them. This group from Australia or New Zealand that were really into, UFOs. They're out there. They're like that, but like super hardcore.
Okay.
They're like, all right. No worries. And then, Rage were great, man. That was great. And they were cool. Then we met. Tim and who was it? Tim, the bassist, and Brad Wilk was the drummer. They came backstage and they hung out. They had some pizza and stuff and, extras. They were really cool. And I remember Bitoy. You remember our roadie Bitoy?
Yeah,
right?
Bitoy, yeah.
The late, great Bitoy.
Yeah.
He passed away. And what happened? So they're there, and this is in Cuneta Astrodome, right? During Pasay. So an Ipis obviously made an appearance in the banyo, right? Because and dude, these guys freaked out because this thing was big. I mean, it's normal size for us, but they were like, "What?" That was funny. They had never seen anything so big in their life. And so Bitoy had to like rescue them, like kill it. It was funny, man.
Right, so
we played.
So just Tim Comerford and Brad Wilk saw the cockroach.
Yeah, because Zach De La Rocha and Tom Morello were, I guess, off in the dressing room. And I remember walking on stage when we were going to open, and I was like, dude, our amps are parang more, like Tom Morello had a really old JCM 800, and it was freaking old. I mean, this thing, it looks freaking old, man. Like, and I was like, wow. And then so I came out, and I remember getting off stage, and I mentioned it to Tim. I go, dude, Tom Morello's amp's really old. He goes, yeah, that's the first amp he ever bought. He's still using.
Oh, nice.
It was incredible. But I'm pretty sure the tubes were fixed and the speakers.
It was
nice.
Yeah.
Dude, and it sounded, you know what? And this was in the upper 90s, say 97, maybe 98. It was all JCM 900s and stuff. But I remember a JCM 800, and I loved it. It was basically the clean channel of the JCM 900, wasn't it? With no gain or anything. And I remember that amp really well because I don't use a lot of pedals, but I had, when I would use a Turbo Rat. That was my favorite fuzz pedal. And a Turbo Rat through a JCM 800.
Yes, that's the sound.
Nothing can really come close to it. And I remember now, and so that's what he was using basically. Well, of course, he had a more expansive pedal board, but it was through a JCM 800, man, just straight in, and it was great. And you can hear that sound. I think it's the most Marshall-y sound of the Marshalls for me. The JCM 800. If you can drive it right, you get that.
Well, it needs to be at a certain volume, kasi
you gotta jack it up, man.
Yeah.
And so I had this beautiful Mesa Boogie triple rectifier with the screen. It was all really nice from Exile Mobile, remember them? Dude, and they had this beautiful amp, and beside this really decrepit sort of, but it's Tom Morello, man, and that's all he had. It was incredible. And then, dude, when they played, that was when you say your face melting power, it was incredible. The moment they played, I think every single seat on every chair, the cushions were ripped off. Every single seat in Cuneta Astrodome. It was just a sea of seat cushions flying all over the place. It was so good, man. It was sweet.
Yeah. That's awesome, dude.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
They were you could feel the ground shaking. They were that good. It was strong, man. Galing.
Nice. Now, Eto, what's the worst gig you ever had?
Pare, gotta be. There have been quite a few. This one sticks out. Christmas Day evening, 1996, maybe 97, in Campo. Yeah, first of all, why would you have a gig on December 25, right? So, and why would we take that?
Yeah.
Did we take that gig? I don't know. But there was like 3 people in the audience. It was the absolute. It was just bad. It was,
Yeah, and Campo's huge.
it was huge, man. All you saw was the waiters clicking their lighter, right? That's all you saw. It was sad. And I'm like, why did we do this? No, there have been a couple. There was one place where it was here in Las Piñas. And I don't know what the hell. We had to like crawl through a construction site to get. It was very Spinal Tap.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
And we get there, and the guys opening, I guess the guys of the opener entertainment was a troupe of transvestite vaudeville, like a transvestite comedy troupe, right? And so they were funny. To be fair, I mean, I sat there and it was hilarious. And they would slap each other with chinelas, but they would really slap each other with the chin. It wasn't even like it would miss. They would really slap. So we're sitting there, we're cracking up. And then, of course, we had to get up and play. And I'm like, I mean, it was just a little amp that was, unmarked little amp. And I was just like, this is never... It's one of those gigs when you just look at the manager and you're like, you're gonna die. You're gonna die when I get off stage, man. It was one of those just very forgettable. But the memorable part was that opener.
The opener.
Hilarious. They were funny. They were like stuntmen or women rather.
Oh, that's great. I had my wireless and I had 2 guys in the back making sure that make sure that they switch at the correct time. So my roadie was flirting with somebody off stage.
Right, so he missed the
So
cue.
pasok ng banda, naka-clean sound ako eh. Hoy!
No, no! That feels it.